the Trade Council of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, and the Livestock Research Institute of Taiwan's Council of Agriculture, and of course, the Circular Taiwan Network for your kind invitation to this very, very special event. It is indeed my honor and privilege to share with you why circular collaboration for climate crisis, or CC4CC in short, is a key enabler fundamental to ascertaining net zero and mitigating climate crisis. Ascertaining net zero, as we talked about, and also mitigating climate crisis is our collective and generational responsibility. And therefore, CC4CC is not only of critical importance, but lately also of utmost urgency to all the sectors of our economy, including the agricultural sector. In truth, for the good part of the last 2 decades, while most of us have all been highly vocal in committing to address the climate crisis and net zero, it is, however, now high time to walk our talks by accelerating the journey toward net zero and mitigating climate crisis, and actively pursuing and piloting circular collaboration for climate crisis initiative at all levels. Let's go straight to explore the underpinning possibilities and also opportunities behind the CC4CC initiative. The pyramid on the left shows that there are 3 levels of CC4CC initiative. The first level being in corporate industry, at the corporate and industry level. The second level is the national level. And finally, the third level, the international level. These 3 levels of initiatives are not mutually exclusive. Instead, they are actually synergistic and mutually inclusive. Before we dive into each level of the CC4CC initiative in the next few minutes, I thought we should take a pause to reflect on what actions we have taken during the last 2 decades, responding to mitigating the climate crisis, or more specifically, how much we have actually accomplished in reducing the overall externalities from human activities accumulated since the Industrial Revolution. We shall truthfully reflect on the following 2 questions. How well are we doing in wiping off or eradicating externalities, specifically in reducing all forms of pollutants and greenhouse gas emissions? And also, have we been approaching the challenge responsibly? I think these are 2 very important questions. Well, in reality, and truth to be told, our response and accomplishment to date has in the main focused only on improving the supply side of the equation. The results are in the main short-term and quick in nature. In other words, we have been fixing the problems with only incremental strategies, while we should be focusing more of our efforts and resources to address the more fundamental and also structural flaws of our system. Be aggressively piloting CC4CC initiatives to enhancing the long-term resiliency, and resiliency meaning beyond sustainability of our society. Ironically, despite the limited progress made today, we continue to claim victory in the name of what we call CSR. Frankly, our commitment to net zero and to mitigating climate crisis should really go far beyond the one-off CSR publicity. In other words, today, we, the industrialists, technologists, researchers, policymakers, politicians, and even environmental NGO champions remain largely focused on trying to improve the linear supply model, linear supply chain, including improvement on the production process improvement, optimization of resources, etc., with the latest technologies and management tools. That being said, it begs another question. Is net zero attainable by improving only the supply side of the equations? In other words, is it only the farmers, the agricultural producers are responsible for that? The honest answer is no. We must do more. Rest assured, I am by no means suggesting that discounting the need and the contribution from improving the supply sides, or the farmers and the factories, operations and management is what we need. Instead, as we are facing such an enormous and long-term challenge, we simply believe we should be more holistic and comprehensive by taking what I call a helicopter view to closely scrutinize the existing linear supply chain, widely acknowledged as a highly destructive and wasteful modus operandi. The existing linear supply chain, dated since the Industrial Revolutions, have been creating all forms of what I call leakages or externalities, damaging and inflicting enormous harms to our environment, our health, and our society. Since the linear supply chain is the obvious source of externalities, and therefore the argument for people to justify that externalities are the necessary evil for the sake of progress and economic growth, and that should be considered antiquated. We must begin to fundamentally and structurally redesign the supply model, befitting for a more resilient future. In other words, the linear model needs to readapt to circular with zero leakages. And sometimes broken chains need to become an inclusive, leakage-proof network. A network comprised of a diverse group of producers and service providers collaborating together. In short, we need to call on all the companies and industry leaders to collaborate to replace the linear supply chain with what I call circular supply network, and to make certain the network is indeed leakage-proof, operating in a zero waste, zero emission, and zero accident environment. This circular supply network will be an inclusive and win-win model, highly resilient to the potential crises arisen from the uncertain future. Let's move on to the next page. And let's move on to the industrial level of the CC4CC, or in other words, at the national level, by country. CC4CC at this level actually provides all countries with a unique transformational opportunity to redesign a systemic and cohesive national development plan. In addition to focusing on supply side of the linear model, we must begin, as we talk about net zero, from redefining the demand side of our economic activities, or to project how our children, and perhaps their children, can and should thrive and live without a fear of rampant externalities, natural disasters as an example. In other words, we need to begin to paint a picture of what a net zero lifestyle would be leading up to the year 2050. This is this demand side exercise and demand side challenge. This lifestyle will serve to help to redefine and to be manifested in our future development of our production, our supply side of industrial and service activities. And that's how they will be defined by the supply side, by the demand side. The circular landscape will create a new market space, providing significant growth opportunities for not only existing businesses, but also for the new startups and entrepreneurs of our future. At the same time, the public sector, the government, based on the needs of the future's living and lifestyle requirement, and also on the business side, the developmental needs of the circular industries will be encouraged to review and renew and reinvest in a wide range of public support systems. This would include all the utility infrastructures and full range of service networks needing to be replaced. Next, furthermore, the CC4CC initiative at the national level would also become what I call a critical DNA necessary to help shape and reconstruct every country's developmental roadmap for a resilient future, as I referred to earlier. The three-way demand, supply, and public support system of CC2CC initiatives must be fully aligned. On the demand side, a net zero lifestyle will be a lifestyle where much of the consumption behavior and activities will be decoupled from ownership and reduce in dependency on resources. And this is one of the principles of circular economy. On the supply side, as well as the public side, seamless, what I call the public partnership, the 3 PPPs, to replace the linear chain with circular network will be paramount. This transition will call for all parties to actively pursue wide range of what we call net zero solutions. Government should seize the opportunity to lead by redefining the scope and depth of the public support system with a necessary investment plan to meet the CC4CC priorities from the consumer side as well as from the commercial ends. Specifically, we need to invest and revitalize numerous public utility infrastructures and service networks. First, we need to improve in order to improve the resiliency, we need to augment the existing centralized utility networks with the decentralized low carbon footprint networks. Second, improving the efficiency of the logistics of the supplying and the tracking of raw materials and product flows. We need to have a system to separate, collect, and value up what we call waste to and from the farms and the homes and the factories. Third, continuously upgrading the telecommunication network to support not only the latest needs for all citizens, households, business enterprises, but also to ensure the telecommunication network itself is optimized in emission and carbon footprint. Finally, with the new public infrastructure, government can also take the opportunity to focus on revamping of all other associated service networks, including medical service, social service, and educational network. And all this ought to be folded into the economic restructuring. Now let's move to the next page at the international level. CC4CC at the international level. I think this is what we are doing here is actually a demonstration of what I call the CC4CC collaboration at the international level. We have long been living and striving in a world of interdependency. Therefore, it wouldn't be a cliche anymore to make a statement such as that no country can ascertain net zero alone. Okay, I'd like to repeat that. No country nor no single industry can ascertain net zero by itself. The first UNFCCC's COP meetings to mitigate climate crisis was held 26 years ago in Germany in 1995. And parallel at the same time, the COP conferences, parallel to the COP conferences, also taking place around the world are numerous economic dialogues amongst nations and trade organizations too. However, ever since then, these dialogues, for the most part, remain business as usual and continue to thrive in the shadow of the traditional linear economic model and principles. As a result, and somewhat ironic, that when both dialogues, economic and trade dialogues, as well as environmental and carbon and climate crisis dialogues were deemed successful after negotiation, they actually each would yield opposing and conflicting results. Why do I say that? In a very successful economic and trade-led dialogue, it will result in the country buying and selling more from each other. And buying and selling more would lead to what? It would lead to manufacturing more. By manufacturing more, we would ultimately increase the externalities. Okay, higher level of this kind of externalities would only fly in the face in the fact contradicting with climate crisis-led dialogues, like COP initiatives, whose main objective is to reduce externalities. The chart to the right of this particular screen indicating, if we look carefully, this is the United Nations by-country NDC, and which stands for Nationally Determined Contribution, with all its good intentions, calling for each country to commit to carbon reduction, has not really yielded satisfactory results. With the exception only a number of countries, the combined reduction by the developed nations over the past 15-20 years is incremental in comparison with the quantum increase of carbon footprints by the carbon production nations like China, India, Vietnam, Indonesia. This suggests one thing, that is, we need to review the effectiveness of the current NDC scheme put forward by the United Nations, and perhaps to redesign a much closely aligned cross-border net zero commitment and collaboration. And I think what we are doing here, sitting together, is exactly that. Ideally, as we move into the next 30 years, leading to 2050, we ought to align and combine all existing, be it bilateral or multilateral economic and trade dialogues, and with environment and climate dialogues into one systemic and synchronized CC for CC dialogue. However, and all you probably realize, in reality, given the social, economic, and geopolitical variances or divides amongst different nations, trying to forge one single CC for CC dialogue in the near term would not seem practical. Nevertheless, CC for CC initiatives at the international level and in the spirit of what I call one world, one team, we can begin to introduce CC for CC initiatives into the existing economic and trade dialogues, such as APEC, as well as environmental and climate crisis dialogue, such as COP events and circular economy discussions, is to be held in November in Scotland. One World is about aligning various and varying national visions, objectives, strategies, and policy interventions into one cohesive global objective and policies toward net zero and mitigating climate crisis. This would include collective effort to initiate researches, combine resources, and design and enforce whatever regulatory policies there were to achieve the shared global goals and objectives amongst nations. In support of this one world's shared goals on net zero, all nations need to act in unison and to collaborate together as one team to encourage a more inclusive systemic CC for CC dialogues among all nations. In the interest of CC for CC networking, each major industry, be it livestock industry, fertilizer industry, feed industry, chemical industry, ICT industries, with its networks of raw material producers, suppliers, product designers, manufacturers, product and service providers, and brand marketers, should be brought together to redesign what I call the circular supply network. Team of the CC for CC network will be backcasting what I described earlier, the net zero lifestyle, backcasting that lifestyle, as we discussed earlier, to help redefine and then redesign a more resilient circular supply network. In short, CC for CC networking should be organized by bringing together companies and industry leaders to redesign a resilient circular supply network. In the spirit of CC for CC partnership, developing, and also underdeveloped nations would also need to work together by shared CC for CC initiative, developed nations should not leave their discussions to themselves. They should not leave the developing nations, underdeveloped nations' needs behind their agenda. In addition, production-based countries and consumption-based countries need to agree on what shared CC4CC solutions are critical to eradicating the externalities prevalent in both ends of the country. In other words, production country and consuming country of carbons, okay, they need to address by collaborating to eradicate the externalities. I'll give you as an example. Is it doable to wanting to eliminate electronic waste or remanufacture ICT products in a consumption nation? Also, at the same time, hoping to reduce the pollutions and emissions from electronic waste or ICT product manufacturing in the production nation, all at the same time? The answer is no. If each country, meaning the production country, independent of the consumption country, choose to work independently in silo. However, the answer would be yes. It would be doable if both countries value the synergies between them and choose to develop collective actions by the production and consumption country, and also to invite both brand and OEM owners in respective countries to work together. In short, unilateral actions taken by the consumption nations or brand owners alone will not be adequate to achieve net zero. And in fact, it may create unnecessary conflicts or ironies between nations and between industries. Finally, behind the daunting and challenging facade of the net zero 2050, we actually see numerous CC4CC opportunities for the agriculture sector and the livestock industry. In fact, we believe Taiwan and Denmark's livestock industry, by working together, we can lead the change. Here, I'd like to recommend a number of CC4CC initiatives for Denmark and Taiwan, and for the audience today to consider. For example, Taiwan and Denmark can co-commission selected researches and studies like, say, a food study focusing on what a 2050 net zero lifestyle would mean to the food industry, to the livestock industry, and initiate livestock's externalities diagnostic comprehensively, taking a frank look at the externalities resulting from the current linear livestock product chain, or redesigning a circular service network or circular product service network for livestock industries, with emphasis on defining what actionable net zero steps we could all take together. More immediately, our foundation, working with the government here, started a forum, which is we call Asia Pacific Circular Economy Roundtable. And I'd like to take this opportunity to invite Denmark to join us at this annual event. Additionally, Taiwan and Denmark can share resources by piloting and pioneering CC4CC initiatives related to the livestock industry, such as, first of all, why can't we pilot a net zero or create a net zero circular fund for the farmers and the associate commercial and non-commercial stakeholders who aspire to achieving net zero? Between Taiwan government and Danish government, why can't we create what we call a net zero circular fund? Two, why can't we launch CC4CC camps to educate future professionals in the livestock industries? And pioneering best practices or sharing the best practices on how livestock industries management and operations and R&D should be enhanced and deployed. Of course, Taiwan and Denmark's government should share their respective experience in policy and regulation levied on their respective livestock industry. Again, in the spirit of leading the change, I believe Denmark and Taiwan can be more inclusive, also by inviting all interested nations to play part in CC4CC dialogues be it held in Denmark or Taiwan, and to invite countries in Asia Pacific region especially. Finally, in closing, your indulgence allow me to share a few of my personal thoughts with you. Personally, at the first glance, achieving net zero by 2050 would seem like a long and treacherous 30 years of planning timeframe. But when you stretch the time beyond the current horizon, everything would seem possible. In other words, the long-term timeframe actually provides us an unique opportunity to move into the future with open and immense opportunity. As I see it also, ascertaining net zero 2050 is also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us all to fulfill our collective and generational responsibility to ascertaining net zero and mitigating the climate crisis. John F. Kennedy once said, "If not me, who? If not now, when?" So let's seize the moment and let's all get started. And thank you all for your time, and I hope to see you all in the very near future, and preferably in person. Thank you once again.
谢谢黄董事长精辟的演说。